Hey heroes, so I've been trying to make this video for a while, but as I've discovered, it's quite difficult to look into a camera and sound natural. So what is this, 6th, 7th take? Hopefully this is the one. This isn't an ordinary video that I'm going to be putting out, obviously. It's an opinion piece on the Switch Lite that was released this week. When I first saw the Switch Lite advertised, I instantly had issues with it. There were some problems that I personally thought of that I haven't seen many other YouTubers kind of address. So this is this video of me trying to explain the issues that I have with the Switch Lite and kind of compare it to the original Switch. The first and most noticeable issue that I have with the Switch Lite is its design. Now I'm not talking about the layout, the classic Nintendo Switch layout, but instead the depth and thickness of the Switch Lite. I understand why the Nintendo Switch was made as thin as it was, because it's a very versatile bit of gear. You can play in docked mode, had to fit in there comfortably, take the Joy-Cons out, use them as two separate remotes, or play it in tabletop mode. There's a fair bit that the original Switch can do, but the Switch Lite is a purely handheld console, so I was a bit disappointed when I saw it that it didn't have like molded grip edges where the Joy-Cons would have been, just to make it a bit more comfortable to play with in handheld for such long periods of time, considering this is very difficult to play with for extended periods of time. It was just a bit disappointing to see, and so I thought to myself, like, why did they not opt to make like a molded grip edge on the Switch Lite? What possibly drove that? And after a bit of thinking and a bit of research, I found that the original Switch sold over like 35 million consoles, which is insane. And since it was a bit uncomfortable to play in handheld, the rise of the grip cases came along, and that market has just exploded. There's PDP, there's PowerA. I'm personally using the Skull & Co, and there's also the Mumba case. As just the top players, there's so many more. And so I can only imagine that Nintendo is trying to make the same revenue out of the Switch Lite for grip cases. Or it was an oversight. Hell, I don't know. I don't work for Nintendo. But this next issue is actually quite big, but not as obvious, and it's the joystick drift that has plagued the original Switch pretty much since launch. Now, with the original Switch, you've pretty much got two options to try to fix this joystick drift issue. And the first is probably the most expensive, and that's to just go out and buy a brand new set of Joy-Cons, which here in Australia can pretty much set you back from anywhere between $100 to $120, which can be a bit steep. I understand why they're so expensive, because there's a fair bit of gear packed into these Joy-Cons, but at that price point, I'd expect to be paying something that would last a bit longer than a couple of years, like these Joy-Cons have been failing at. The second option is cheaper, but you run a higher risk with doing this, and it's replacing the joysticks yourself. Jump on Amazon, there they are, kit included to do the job, but beware, you could end up breaking the joysticks more than they already were if you make a mistake, and then you'll be up for the $100, $120 anyway. So, you know, the options are there, but do be careful. At least with the original Switch, you have options if the joysticks do begin to drift. However, I've heard no news from Nintendo as to whether they have fixed or upgraded the joysticks in the Switch Lite that has just been released. So what happens? What happens when the joysticks start drifting on the Switch Lite and you have a fully concealed unit that you potentially may need to do a repair on? Unless they extend the warranty on the Switch Lite due to the issues that have happened on the original Switch, then yeah, you're pretty much just going to be left with having to open up your Switch Lite to do a repair yourself. And like, you're not just going to ruin a pair of Joy-Cons doing that. You have the potential to brick your Switch Lite system and just totally write it off if you make a mistake while trying to do that. So that alone just makes me hesitant to go out and just grab one straight off the shelf, because unless I hear any news from Nintendo about the joysticks, I'm not going to risk breaking a unit to do a repair that should just be fixed by Nintendo themselves. Which leads me into my final point, which is the price point of these devices. The Switch Lite is being sold, I think the highest I've seen is $330. You might be lucky enough to find one a little bit cheaper than that, but that's a lot of money to be paying for a device that potentially may just start drifting and have characters start walking off and not have an easy way of fixing that issue, and is already smaller and uncomfortable to play in handheld. The original Switch, however, goes for about $470. So personally, if it were me who was just trying to get into the Switch market and couldn't make up my mind between the two, to have a device that can be played in docked, handheld, tabletop, whatever, or a purely handheld device, I would be saving my money and just waiting to maybe see the original Switch come on sale. They've recently had a new original Switch come out, which has an extended battery life to be able to play that longer in handheld mode. I just don't see the appeal of purchasing a Switch Lite over the original Switch. A far more versatile machine for a first Switch console. But these are just my opinions, and I am open to discussion. I'm sure some of you have already picked up the Switch Lite and might have a better idea of how this console is functioning than myself, but these are just issues that I've noticed and needed to be addressed. But I'm happy to keep the discussion going, and I'd like to hear back from anyone who has thoughts on this discussion. Pro Switch Lite, pro original Switch. I'm not saying any console is better than the other, I'm just saying that these are some pretty big issues that I've noticed with the Switch Lite. So thank you for sticking around and watching this video. I hope some of you found it helpful, but if not, that's also fine, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye!